The afternoon I left my parents' house was strangely quiet once the shouting stopped. My suitcase landed in the grass with a dull thud, a cardboard box split open beside it, and a few books slid onto the damp lawn. My sister was crying behind my parents in the doorway, her hands covering her face in a way that looked dramatic but oddly careful, like someone checking if the audience was still watching. My father pointed toward the street. "Get out. You're not worthy of this family." My mother stood behind him with her arms folded. She didn't repeat his words, but she didn't stop them either. My sister sobbed louder. "You ruined my marriage." I remember looking at the three of them, noticing how certain they all seemed. The story had already settled into place: my sister betrayed, my parents defending her, and me, the quiet cause of everything. I could have argued. I could have asked how exactly I had caused a divorce between two people who barely spoke to me anymore. But something about the scene felt sealed. No one was listening. They weren't waiting for information. They were waiting for me to accept the role. So I didn't say anything. I picked up the box, closed the suitcase, and walked down the driveway. Behind me, the front door shut. For the first day or two, my thoughts moved in circles. I stayed at a friend's apartment, sleeping on a couch near the window. During the day I wandered between quiet places, libraries, cheap cafes, a park bench where no one knew me. What bothered me most wasn't the accusations. It was how easily everyone believed them. My sister had always been emotional in a way that filled the room. Growing up, whenever something went wrong, broken plans, arguments with friends, problems at school, her tears arrived before explanations did. And somehow the rest of us adapted. We softened things for her, reworded events, avoided pressing questions. Over time she stopped needing proof. Her certainty was enough. By the fourth day I realized something else. The silence I'd kept during the confrontation had followed me out of the house, but it felt different now. Less like surrender, more like space. For the first time in years, I wasn't defending myself against a story already decided. A week after I left, I was sitting at a small library table with a stack of papers I'd been organizing. Partly to distract myself, partly because leaving suddenly had forced me to dig through old files and emails I hadn't touched in years. That's when I noticed a message thread from months earlier, something work-related that I'd forgotten about. Attached was a forwarded conversation involving my sister's husband, or rather, my former brother-in-law. I read it twice. Then a third time. It wasn't dramatic, no explosive confession, no scandalous language, just a timeline, a quiet, factual exchange about financial documents and a date discrepancy connected to their separation. But the dates mattered. Because the version my sister had told everyone, including my parents, placed blame on me for something that supposedly happened weeks earlier. Except this email proved something simple. The marriage had already been falling apart before the event she blamed on me. Long before. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. For several minutes I did nothing. I wasn't angry. Mostly I felt tired. Because suddenly the whole situation looked smaller than it had when I was standing in the yard with my belongings scattered across the grass. I opened my laptop and wrote one email. Not to my parents, not to my sister, to the person already involved in the legal process surrounding the divorce, the same person copied in the thread I'd found. My message was calm. I attached the conversation and added one line clarifying the timeline. No accusations, no commentary, just information. Then I pressed send. 20 minutes later my phone began vibrating. At first I ignored it, assuming it was spam or a notification. But the buzzing didn't stop. When I finally turned the screen over, the first message was from my sister. I stared at it for a moment. Another message appeared almost instantly. I'm Siraus. Then my mother, we were wrong. Please give us one chance. A minute later, my father, we need to talk, come home. I sat there watching the messages stack on top of each other. The urgency was new. When they pushed me out of the house, there had been no hesitation, no uncertainty. Now their confidence had evaporated in less than half an hour. My sister called 3 times, I let it ring. More messages appeared. You're destroying everything. Please just stop the email. We can fix this if you come home. I noticed something while reading them. Not one message asked if I was okay. Not one asked where I had been staying. Every sentence revolved around the same thing: control. They didn't want the story to change. Because outside the house, stories require evidence. And evidence doesn't cry. 2. I placed the phone on the table and looked around the library. A few people sat quietly reading. A student highlighted lines in a textbook. Someone turned a page near the window. Life moved normally here. No accusations, no shouting, just quiet. For years I had believed family meant permanence. That no matter how messy things became, you eventually returned to the same structure. But sitting there, I understood something different. A house can exist without trust, without fairness, without safety. And once you see that clearly, returning to it doesn't fix anything. It just restores the old arrangement. My phone vibrated again. Another message from my father. Come home. We'll talk about it as a family. I opened the reply box. For a moment my hands hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed 2 words. No, never. I pressed send, turned the phone face down, and opened the book I had been reading before everything started vibrating. The words on the page slowly came back into focus. Outside the library windows, the afternoon continued exactly as it had before. Only this time, the silence around me didn't feel like exile. It felt like room to breathe.